Hello, and welcome to Alpha Anywhere Q&A, also known as the Wednesday webinar for this day, January 26th, 2022. My name is Scott Allen. I'll be your host today, filling in for Dave McCormick. And I'm joined today by Sarah Mitchell. She'll be showing you all about Alpha Anywhere's charting library. Sarah, are you there?
I am definitely here, and I don't know if I'll get to everything about the charting library because it's got a lot of stuff in it, but for sure today we're going to demo doing something complex. Just as a heads up, if you are new to Alpha Anywhere, some of this stuff might go over your head, and that is because we are periodically trying to make sure we're doing webinars on some more advanced stuff that you can do with the product to cater to our entire community. But for sure, if at any point you get confused, you have a question about what you see, please type your questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. And of course, you are not required to only ask questions about today's demo. You can ask questions about anything else anywhere. And you may also ask questions about DevCon 2022, which we have just announced very recently. Right now is the early bird special. You can register for $199 for our virtual event. This is going to be the cheapest it's going to be this year. So if you are planning to come, now is the time to jump on those tickets because at the end of the month, the early bird special ends, and that's I believe that's next Monday. So I hope you can join us. Again, it is virtual this year. I'll paste this link in the chat box for you guys it's our www.alphasoftware.com/devcon 2022. But it is remote, and I know a lot of people don't like that, and we don't like that either, but it just, for all the logistics of planning an in-person event with a high chance that we would have to, at the very end, make it completely remote anyway because of COVID. We think it's just safer for everyone's just expectations and wallets to just do it remote again this year. So please register. I really hope to see you guys virtually. We're going to take some of what we learned last year and the year before and try to give you guys a really awesome experience this year. So keep your eyes open for that. And then I'm just going to seed this idea now. If you are an Alpha Anywhere developer and you've got an awesome app and you would like to show that off, we would love to hear from you. We do customer showcases at this event. And now is the time to start thinking about that. Send us an email at guys@alphasoftware.com if that interests you. But I'd like to see that idea now because we'd like to see you there. So JavaScript chart. And we're gonna work out a documentation today. A couple of releases ago, end of 2021, we introduced a new Alpha Anywhere charting library. And that library is an option that you can use for generating a JavaScript chart. JavaScript chart is a type of control and a UX component. And the reason why you would be interested in this is that the Alpha Anywhere charting library has a lot of flexibility, has a lot of stuff you can do with it. And we own it. And we're not dependent on rgraph, which has updated over time, and you can continue to use rgraph, but with the Alpha Anywhere option, there's just some things that we can do more easily to give you more control than we can with the rgraph chart. So this is the documentation page on JavaScript charts, and I'm just going to warn everyone now that the Alpha Anywhere charting library is still A, in active development, and B, very new. So we are continuing to kind of work out what that framework is, determine what the information is that you need to use it effectively, and also make some design decisions within it to make it easier to use. And what I wanted to do today is pull from one of the examples that we have a video on for the JavaScript chart. And it's this in-depth example of a chart based on SQL data. So we're not going to watch the video. Oh. Okay, thank you for notifying me that. My screen was paused. I apologize. Okay, let's back up real quick. Did I close it? DevCon 2022. Guys, there is video for what I'm talking about. Oh, I apologize for that. Yeah, so go to this website, go to our website, register. If you forget what the URL is, you can find it under resources, DevCon 2022. Again, the early bird special, as somebody has referred to it, ends at the end of the month, and I highly recommend you jump on this now. So JavaScript chart, it's a type of control in the UX component for rendering charts that can work on the client. So regardless of the type you use, whether you're using the rgraph model or our new Alpha Anywhere charting, all the code to render the charts is downloaded with your app, so it never has to make a callback to the server. Now, that being said, the example that we're going to go through today, which you can find down in the videos, it's called an in-depth example chart based on SQL data. This example makes callbacks to the server every time you select a different data set, but I wanted to show you guys how you can build a chart using the AA charting library that does the same thing that the sample component that you can download here is already doing. So we're going to take a look at that here. And obviously I've already built something. So let's look at the original example. And this is going to be formatted a little bit differently than what you see in the video because I've turned this into a panel layout so I can have the two different views of the charts. But the original example, we have the pie chart, and then there's these two drop-down boxes up here. One is a bunch of countries, and the other one is some numbers. And the idea is to display the top X, where X is one of these numbers, products being sold in that country. And this data is being pulled from the Northwinds database. So as you change the country, the data that's being shown here updates to just display what those top items are being sold. And the way this was done is a bit twofold. First, there's this JS chart that uses data series data, but that data series itself, when we go look under menu in data series editor, is built on a custom XBasic function that does all the data calculation. And the original video in that documentation explains the implementation of that XBasic function. I'm going to point out one little tweak I made to the SQL in that, and that is I added this space DESC to the order by, because when I was looking at this, this data was being ordered in ascending order, which isn't the top sales in the country. That's the bottom sales in the country. So I decided to flip the data around. That's the only difference. If you're trying to be very specific, but all of this is explained in that video. I will go drop in the link to this documentation. Oh, I already did that. So if you go to that link that I put in the chat, and just go down to in-depth example and watch that video, it explains that for you. So we're not going to go over that. What we're really going to look at today is how do you take this, where the data was a data series, and then, we set the data to the totals, and then the labels are the product names, and some tooltips are the product names. Like, how do you take that and then do the same thing in the new Alpha Anywhere SVG chart library? So just to give you an idea of where we're going to go. If I swipe right, this is the same data charted using the Alpha Anywhere SVG chart library, and it has several customizations in it. I've changed the colors. I've customized the labels here. You'll see that there's a number underneath it. I put 2022 at the top. It's the title. And the spacing between the pie slices was something I changed as well. And as we change these drop downs, you'll see that it updates. So it's the exact same data source. And with respect to updating the chart, it's exactly the same code that you would call for that rgraph JavaScript chart, because it's a JavaScript chart. So all the JavaScript chart events work the same. But the implementation on this is going to be very, very different. So this is the final version, but let me see here. Let me just copy all that out of there, cancel out of this, and we'll go take a look at setting that up. Pardon me while I open up a new Notepad instance. Setting that up from one of the existing samples. So we're going to add another panel card in here. I'm going to click Add Control and type in panel, select a panel card, insert after the end tag of panel card 2, which was selected, and then we'll add a JavaScript chart. So the way I started with this example, what we're going to look at and just talk about some of these settings, is I came down here and I picked pie settings and data. So there's two examples down here that these are the newest ones that were added that show how you can do a value, specify the color of that data point, and in the case of a pie chart, it's the slice is the data point. In a bar chart, it's the bar, that box on the graph. And then also the label, which is shown on the outside here. So we go ahead and we click this and we run it. We're just going to see that simple basic thing. So to get from this to the chart that's being driven off of data from a data series with some custom colors, there's a few changes we need to make, and also a few size things we need to consider as well, given how large some of our labels are. So the title, that part where you saw 2022, that's just this property here called title. And then the data itself is this property called data. And these all exist within this variable called chart. You're going to see this in all of the Alpha Anywhere SVG chart library examples. Most of the other examples, the colors are a bit different. It's either not specifying them at all, therefore using the system defaults, or it's got some function in it that's doing some computation. But in terms of setting the value, the color, and the label, that's done in data. Your offset is also something you need to think about. So top and bottom is the area above and below the chart, and the area above the chart is where your title is going to show up. There are options to put stuff on the bottom of the chart as well, including the title. And then left and right are going to be your side margins. So those callouts that were indicating what the pie slice was, those are going to appear in those left and right areas. So that you need to have enough space in that area for that to render, otherwise it may appear clipped. And these values are just raw numbers. I believe they're pixels, but I would have to double check with the development team on that. Within the settings itself, we're not gonna talk about map and dimensions today, but we will come down here and I'll point out this colors function, which I don't know if you can tell, but there's some math being done here to determine what colors need to be shown. And it looks a little confusing, but we can talk about it. And then the other thing I wanted to show you was label. And we'll look at margin a little bit. So there's a lot of stuff in here. I will understand if people are confused a little bit by this time we get to the end of it. But all these properties are documented. You will find that information about those properties in the reference section in documentation, and specifically we have this new thing called the A5 chart namespace, and it's got a ton of stuff in it. And it's going to be a little overwhelming when you first get into this. But the secret is to kind of identify from the example what it is you need to look for in there. So all pie charts are a type of radial chart. So the settings that apply to this are going to be anything in that A5 chart documentation that is for radial types of charts. So I think what we should do first is work out the data. So this right now is, this is just using static data. So no, actually, I'm going to back that up again. What I would like to work out first is how this looks before we put in the data, because the data is going to reference a data series, and that calculation doesn't happen until we run it, because it's going to need to use some XBasic code to calculate it. So this code here is, it looks complicated for colors, but all it's doing is it gets this, you can use a function here, or you can have like some static value. D is just the name of that parameter, but it's the data for the chart. And within that data, it has groups and points and source and items. All of this here is the syntax to reference this. So data, value, and color, and label. So the stuff you have defined up here is what's going to be in items. So color is what's being referenced here to pull out the color. All of this is some math. I'm not 100% sure what it's doing. It might just be adjusting the color slightly. Oh, I see what it's doing. So it's creating a fill, and it's creating an outline. We don't have to do that. We could change this to just return the color. So this could just return LC. If we preview it again, see how everything looks a bit flatter. This math that's going on in here becomes really, really obvious when you use the color palette that I had created for the final example. Which, if I do this right, I won't accidentally exit the meeting to find it. But color-wise, I came up with a color palette, and I'm just gonna go up here and paste it in it manually into our data here so you can see it. Oops. Copy that. Please bear with me. Put that there. And then
Did you choose this series of colors from a palette?
Oh, yes, I did.
Put it
So,
in what a
and I'll
palette?
show you guys how to get access to that palette. So, see how these look like nice and bright and flat? If you take that out and preview it again, now you see these, like, see how it changed? So this is doing some math on that color. And I didn't really like it because I have very specific colors I wanted to use, and Scott planted the seed for Sarah's What a Palette app, which I have a lot of fun building and plan on making updates to, but I will put this in the chat. It's just something fun I did to, I've lost the chat window. Here we go. It's something I put together just to generate some colors. We were doing a lot of work with alpha transform and charting. The charting that you see in alpha transform, I don't know if you've seen it, uses the AA charting library. Some people have asked, why is it faster? And we built our own charting library because we wanted something very specific for transforms. So that's why it exists now. But it has I used that spectral and generated 25 colors and then manually arranged them. But that's the color setting. I didn't like what this was doing with those, so in my implementation, I just returned the color. You could do things here to specify a fill and border and whatever you want for colors. There's a lot of power in that. But the other thing that that I did, which requires having access to the data itself, but well, no, we have access to data. I also changed the label to include the value on the pie. So again, another function that it takes a D. This one has point source. So the source of the data items again is referencing this array up here of value, color, and label. So label was that text that was up there, and then value is the value. Preview chart again, we see tiny, tiny little numbers down there. If you don't like how small those numbers are, if you hop down one layer down or one level, one line below HTML, you'll see style, font size 60%. So here's where you can change that to bump it up larger to be more readable. And now we start to see how some of the text gets cut off. So you unfortunately have to give this chart a very explicit size. And I happen to know we're going to go for 1,000, I think 600, 400 in the final output. But we can resize that, preview it. Now our chart's nice and big. Let me make that a little bit larger. So that's a bit more readable. You see how up here sales is in line with point. That's our top offset, so we could make that something like 50. So that there's more space here. And then come down and, oh, this might actually be a new setting that you have to add. So we have title, and title has, title has a location, I believe.
What happens if you change the offset on bottom of title to like 50?
On bottom?
Yeah.
So this is just general offset for the whole chart.
Well, would that move the chart?
That'll move the chart
I
in.
see.
Yeah. So then we
Never
can make, if we make left and right bigger. Oops, not 2000. That's not, you're not going to see it here, but if this was something like 600 on the width, see how the pie got smaller because our left and right width is now bigger.
I was mistaken. I thought that the offset was offsetting the title, but no, it is offsetting the whole graph.
No,
So.
I think with the point here, I thought there was a setting for that, but I think I'm misremembering it. So the rest of the configuration is all down here. So we have layer colors is where you're going to set a magical function to return the color. Do some color processing if you'd like. You could even have like a function that just automatically picks a color here. Point is the data point, that pie slice, and this is going to seem rather nonsensical, but the type is bar. And there's only two types, and in this pie chart, it's bar. A margin is the space between the slices. So if you make this 10, see how the gap increases between your pie slices? I'm going to make this 6. A little bit, little gap there. Fills can have a gradient left to right as it fills in. And then label, there's a lot of stuff you can do with label. So in this example, it's outside, but I believe in addition, I know for sure there's, in addition to outside, you have call out. But there's a few other, let's see, location. You can also set it to none, is another option. So if we change this to none, there's no label. Similarly, if you didn't return any HTML for the HTML property, there would be no label because there'd be no text to display. This outside is the default. There's another one called callout. And I think callout is like the very interesting one for PyChart because it introduces data label with a line kind of interface, and there's a lot you can do with that. So I'm going to grab our callout example here that I put together, and just for reference, all this, everything that you can specify inside of this label is documented as a definition label object. So location, which as I was going through this, I realized that we're not telling you what those values can be. It can be call out, it can be outside. I don't know if inside is an option, but I'm going to research that and we're going to update this. This is a working document. We're still trying to figure out everything that needs to be in here because there's a lot of documentation in here for this chart library. But call out is one of the options here. And a call out can be all sorts of things. It can be, you can do things to specify the type of line. In this case, it's called step. So it steps out and goes straight over and then steps in again. There's this distribute, left to right fill stuff, which I've clicked the refresh thing here. So that distribute to left fill, right fill, it distributes your labels to fill the left side and the right side. There's top and bottom, which is going to require more vertical space above and below the pie chart if you want to place things up there. And then there's also an option to specify a size, which is some value of how much space each label takes up. I wanted to explain that in more detail than this, but I'm still not 100% sure what size is supposed to be. But for sure, I think the one that's most useful is the distribute to options, which can be left and right. So if we take out left and right, or if we take out the fill a modifier on those and preview it, they're going to be bunched up. If you add in the fill, they're going to be spaced to maximize occupying those left and right spaces to the side of your chart. You can do top. You can do top and bottom. We can look at that real quick, which puts things up at the top or at the bottom, wherever it seems to fit best. There's an auto option where it just automatically spaces everything. And then you're not limited to one. You could do top, left, bottom, right, to kind of distribute everything around. And you can see how our sales label now is gotten in the way. So we can come up here and let's go turn that off for now. There we go. And then these all take that fill dash fill, which just says fill up all the space that's up there. So you can, when we do fill on the top here, you can see how those points broke apart. So that's a few little things you can do with customization. There are annotations, which we can get into another day. There's a ton of stuff to cover in here, and I only have so much time. I do want to answer some questions. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change this back to left fill and right fill, because in my testing with the data that we have, this is going to be the best way to look at it, because the labels get quite long. And then what we're going to do up here now is we're going to take data, and we're going to modify this to not be a static set of data, but to call a function that computes the value, color, and label to return to display in the pie chart. So first, what I'm going to do is take out that array, and we're going to define a new function. And what we're going to do here in var chart, these settings here, data is going to be a function instead of an array. So we're going to call get JS chart data. And it's not even going to be a function, it's just going to be a function call. And then we're going to define this function just right here inside of this JavaScript chart control markup at the top. And this is how I write my JavaScript functions. You can also write them this way, like that. Both syntaxes are correct. I like to do it this way because it reminds me that everything in JavaScript's a variable. Get.js chart data is a function right now, but you could later come along and set it equal to a string, and that will change it to a string. And then I'm just going to copy what I wrote up earlier, because some of the work of getting all my colors into the array can take a bit of time, and I don't think you guys want to watch me type out colors. So what this function is it's got a few things in it. It's got colors, which is an array of colors. There's 25 in here. In our drop down, the maximum value you can have is 20. So there's some excess colors in here, but that's okay. And then the rest of it is creating a data array, creating a variable that contains series 1, which is that data series that was defined using that xbasic function. And then what we do is we iterate through all of the values in series total. So a data series, so this dialog object.underbar data series data.series1 contains multiple arrays. One is called total, one is called product name, one is called countries. And those are stored as separate arrays. I'm making an assumption here that all of those arrays are the same length. That may or may not be dangerous, I don't know. But what I'm doing is I'm just iterating over all the totals we have, because in that xbasic function, what it does is it takes the selected country and the number of values you want, and it makes a call to the database on the server and just pulls down the values for that country and the top X where it's the number, so 5 or 20 or whatever in between. So there's only going to be, the only data that's going to be in this series is the data we want to display, so we don't have to do any additional filtering or checking on country or count. If you wanted, you can change that data series so it did a generic SQL call to pull down all the data, and then use JavaScript processing on the client with those drop-down variables from those drop-down controls to determine which data to pull out. But we're not going to get into that today. We're just going to iterate through all the totals that we have, and we're going to assume that that index, which starts at 0 in JavaScript an array and it goes to the length, we're going to use that to select the value of total. So whatever the value in the total array at index I is, we're going to set that to value. We're going to grab the color at the same index in our colors array. And then for the label, we're going to grab the product name from that same index. And all of that gets pushed into an object. These are curly braces on the end. I believe you can see that, but maybe not. And that's just going to get pushed into data, and then we return data. So that's it for building up the array for what's going to be displayed down here. Now, at this point, if we preview the chart, we're going to get an error because this data series data doesn't exist. And likewise, neither does curly brace dialog.object curly brace, because that's a placeholder that will be replaced by the application server when this is run in a preview or a published environment. So at this point, we need to click OK and go look at chart 4. And for simplicity, I'm going to move it up here. And I'm going to make 2 more changes. I'm going to come over to country. And this is just so that the demo operates with more ease. There's a JS chart refresh data function here. This is the thing that does all the work to trigger the callback to the server to fetch the new data and then redraw the chart. And I'm just going to add JS chart 4, which is the new one we just made. So I'm going to copy that, save this. So when this onChange event fires for the country dropdown, so that onChange is going to fire whenever the value changes, is going to call that function and refresh all of these charts. And then top number has the exact same code in it. So we're going to drop in chart 4 as well and click save and then preview. So this is our chart, and it looks a bit cramped. There's more we could do here. Those margins that we made really big at the top and the bottom, we made them 50. We could make them smaller to give this more vertical space to grow. But as we go in here, as we pick Brazil, see how that updated. If we pick 5, it's only showing us the top 5 from Brazil. Go down to Ireland. Looks like Ireland has all the same things. Mexico, so on and so forth. So all the action JavaScript and existing JS chart functions, they work the same. The big thing about the Alpha Anywhere SVG charting that's going to be the major change is how you set up the configuration of the data, how you're displaying stuff in it, offsets, and so on and so forth. So that's a simple demo. I will give this component to people who want it. I will make a note to put it up in GitHub and make sure we have a link in the video description on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, check the video description for that download. I'm hoping Scott will make sure he gets that from me when we upload the video. But at this point, I would like to open up questions. I know we just talked about pie charts today. I would like to get to bar charts, line charts, layering charts on top of each other. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with this. So, but with about 20 minutes left, I do want to alleviate some confusion if that exists.
Yeah, you did have a few questions.
I assume so.
Yeah, it's not too many, but we can start with the ones that are on topic. And there was one that came in earlier about if we could do this with DBF tables.
Yeah, so the data series, just as a big caveat reminder, if you are publishing to Alpha Cloud, you cannot use DBF tables hosted on Alpha Cloud. But DBF tables are just a data source like any other data source. If we go and we look at the XBasic function where this is implemented, it's using portable SQL. It's opening a connection to the AA demo Northwind connection string or AA demo Northwind database. That's a SQLite database on my system, but that connection string can be a DBF table. And if you go over to web projects and you click on the SQL button and you open the AlphaDO connection strings builder, we'll just click new and build. One of the options in here is DBF. Or at least it used to be. Oh, maybe it's not there anymore. I'll have to look in that. Oh, you know why it's not in here. I'm running Community Edition.
That's exactly what I thought I was going to say. Is it because it's Community Edition?
You can't use DBFs in Community Edition, but you can in the full version, and it is an option in the data source builder. So you can build a SQL AlphaDAO connection string to your DBF data source. And if you want to do this all in In SQL, or not SQL, in XBasic, you could build a custom function that does this. You don't have to build an XBasic function to populate a data series. If we go back to the data series editor and we add a new one, we'll just accept the series 2 default, click OK. If you go ahead and edit the series definition, you have SQL cross-section, which I don't actually have a lot of experience using, so maybe that's something we could look at. But I believe also if you are using the full version, you have access to the DBFs. Look at the data series editor. Yes, so DBF and DBF cross-section are two options in the data series builder. You're not seeing them here because I'm running Community Edition, and we don't let you use DBFs in Community Edition because you can only publish to Alpha Cloud using Community Edition. And as I previously stated, you can't publish DBF tables to Alpha Cloud because you can't use them in that way with Cloud because of how Alpha Cloud works.
All right. Yeah, so we got another one. How about a legend on these graphs? Could you have a legend?
Yes, you can. How you turn it on, I did not get that far in my research, but I will definitely look at it. We could also quickly take a look at, I'm just going to change JS chart 4 here that we set up. If we go in here and we look at the sample charts, let's see if any of them have a legend. They may not. But yes, I know for sure you can have a legend because we do it in transform with our charting. So that is a very good question. I'm gonna make that, make sure we cover how to do that in our doc.
Maybe we can put a little addendum or something like that in the on the YouTube channel for this about where that would be found in the doc.
Yeah, if we can get an answer for you before we get that up there, for sure, we'll put that in the description on the video, and as well as make a special call out for the next webinar about where you can go learn that information. Again, the charting library is huge. How do we start here? Start with chart. There's just a ton of stuff in it, and learning of layer is one of them. Annotations. Chart. What was that again? Sorry, I saw something. Annotations, see chart, guides, annotation, and this is possibly, and I need to make these into links, but legend object, there we go. So annotations have a legend object, and it looks like these are the settings for setting it up. I would need to read through this a little bit just to make sure that I'm giving you correct information, but this is how you would definitely specify it within that annotations object. And if we go back into our definition here, I don't know if you remember that or not, annotations was down here at the bottom. So that's where the legend definition goes.
Great. Well, that's great. Okay, we have a couple other questions, but I think that's most of the ones that were related on the topic. I think there was also one about this, are there speed advantages using AA chart library over the standard JavaScript one?
No, one isn't better than the other. I'm not sure, but I think that the rgraph library we use is an older version of it, so finding help for that is a little harder. And I don't know long term if we're going to stick with rgraph or just make everything the SVG chart library.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and so that's kind of does it for the ones that I'm seeing related on topic. We could go to a few other questions that came in just generally. So we had a question about the calendar template, the new calendar template.
The list calendar template
List calendar, yes.
layout
And
still
how's the
in,
progress on that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I would
No
imagine right
change.
now development is really highly focused on workflow at the moment, and so I don't think that particularly a lot of attention is being put on the calendar while that's being focused upon. Uh, but if again, we've said it before, I think, and that is to please send in requests to. Um, you can go into Alpha Anywhere and make suggestions for product improvements and that sort of thing, and you can ask for that there.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that always helps to let them know so that they know that there are people out there who are interested in it. I bring it up to folks involved from time to time. Thank you for showing an enhancement request.
Yeah. Send an enhancement request. That's one way you can send it in. You can also email guides@alphasoftware.com, and we can talk to the dev team and see where they're at on that. I know that's something that people have been asking for a while now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, they don't think we've made any more progress on it yet.
Yeah. Okay, we have this other question, and this one's a little bit lengthy, so I'm going to try to read it out here. So
Oh boy.
we have a list that has a setup to export to Excel using an action button. When previewed in the browser from the developer, it exports properly. When I publish it to my app, it gives me a 0-byte file.
Huh.
No idea what it's doing wrong. Think that if it worked in the developer, it would work when published, but obviously something is missing. Any insight?
No, we'd need a test case on that. And we'd need to know a few more things, like what do you mean by your app? Are you using is it a web app, a mobile app? And then what server are you running on? Is it Alpha Cloud, IIS, or Classic? Because we try our best to make sure they're all the same. There are some small variances between them on very few things. But something you might want to check too is just to make sure that Excel files are allowed to be downloaded. It's one of the file types.
Okay.
So I would imagine that if you're getting a 0-byte file back, that you are allowing Excel files to be downloaded in your application. So we would need to investigate that. And if the person who sent in that question can just email guides@alphasoftware.com with the description. And if you have a small test case, that would be amazing because it would jumpstart our ability to investigate it and get back to you faster.
Great. That as far as I can see, that seems to do it for questions at the moment, unless anyone else has any other questions they want to quickly type in. I think that's about it.
So I know I was a little bit all over the place with the JavaScript chart today, and some people are wondering why. I want to know is what do you want to do with these charts so that we can create some more curated examples for you. I know building a dashboard out, displaying data, metrics, that kind of thing can provide a lot of insight and power, especially if you're in the business of collecting data. And being able to visualize that and make decisions can be really beneficial for your business, or even just having an idea of where pain points are in your customer base. So if people want to see examples of bar charts, what we got in here? We've got some line charts you can build. There's an example that overlays them. And I don't know if you guys know this, but you can actually make this wider. There you go. So this is an example of two charts overlaid on top of each other. And we can talk about how you would do that. Someone is asking for a reposting of the doc link. Warning. Oh, no warning. I'm going to put in the doc link for A5 chart. I don't think I put that in there yet.
Right.
Again, this today's webinar is aimed at doing some more advanced stuff, and this is sort of one of those things that we've very recently released and is still in development, kind of, but to a point where we want you guys to start using it, telling us what you like, what you want, what could be easier. And for sure on this documentation, if it's confusing, click this big red link at the bottom that says report an issue with this page and let me know so we can fix it, because I'm going through this and I'm trying my best, but there is a ton of stuff in here. So and not everything that makes sense to me will make sense to you at times. Well, I don't think we're getting very many more questions.
No,
I'm a
doesn't
little
appear so.
surprised if we get to end a little bit early, given the content that we were covering. So
Yeah, it was like when you were showing me the overlay of charts, I thought to myself that being able to do two charts on top of one another, I can imagine Greg doing something really creative with it.
well, we all know that Greg would just build a new video game in charting.
Exactly. It would be cool.
He already did.
Yeah, sure.
At DevCon. Well, someone's asking if there's any known issues with the Salesforce integration. No, I don't know of any. If you're asking that, I'm wondering if you've run into an issue, and if you have, please email us at guides@alphasoftware.com so we can take a peek. Okay, well, there's no other questions. Scott, I think we can maybe end a bit early. Again, DevCon, and if you're into building charts, please use Waterpalette. I'll take a moment to show some of the color pictures you can pick here. Purple and green. All these colors in this dropdown are derived, or colors that are used in data visualizations. So it's not something I made up when found a library. And you can do some crazy stuff with it, like shuffle.
Neat. Yeah, it's a useful little tool.
Yep. And you can copy button copies it in a format that can be used with alpha transform, which isn't helpful for what our demo was today, but that's how you can get the colors out. So yeah, let's
do you have other little useful tools that you have shared for public use as well?
Do I have other useful tools? No, not at this time.
Okay.
But I might do a version of this as a mobile app.
All right.
And speaking of mobile, we are going to be doing some Alpha Anywhere to mobile using Ionic App Flow. That's a webinar that's coming up. I don't have a specific date for you, but that's something that we are looking at, as well as we'll do one on doing a Cordova CLI build, probably Android, because it's easier to demo Android on a Windows machine than it is to demo a Mac on a Windows machine. Yeah.
All right. Is that it then?
That's it. Yep. Thank you, everybody, for coming today.
Yeah, we'll catch you all next week. I think Dave will be back by then.
Yes.
And resuming his duties. It was an honor to fill in for him in the interim. And I'll catch you all again sometime soon.
Yep. Always a pleasure to have you here, Scott.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah.
All right.
It's been fun. All right, thank you. Goodbye.